Rocky Horror Minute is rated R. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is also rated R. We're going to spend this time discussing the movie in gory detail, and along the road we'll talk about some adult content and use some of our favorite swear words.
Can you fart so hard your balls explode?
Consider yourselves warned.
Welcome to Rocky Horror Minute, the podcast where we break down the Rocky Horror Picture Show in excruciating detail, 1 minute at a time. I'm one of your hosts, Leandra.
And I'm your other host, Kelly.
And today we're joined by a special guest for a second time. We have Bryon Lockhart from Marine Corps Movie Minute. Say hello, Bryon.
Hello.
You were supposed to say hello, Bryon, but we'll let it slide this time.
You didn't say Simon Says, so I didn't really do it fully, probably.
Well, my name's not Simon.
And don't call me Shirley.
All right, Kelly, what happens in this minute?
So we're discussing minute 44 of the Rocky Horror Picture Show today. When we left off, Eddie, Meatloaf's character, had just said, "I really love that rock and roll." And so this minute starts with him saying, "Hot Patootie, bless my soul. I really love that rock and roll." And then he grabs his saxophone and starts playing a sax solo. And at the end of that sax solo, he kicks his foot twice and then pumps his fist while kicking his foot 2 more times. Then he starts to walk over to Columbia singing, "My head used to swim from the perfume I smelled. My hands kind of fumbled with her white plastic belt. I'd taste her baby pink lipstick and that's when I'd melt. She'd whisper in my ear, tonight she really was mine." While he's doing that, he's kind of leaning in and kind of acting like he's maybe gonna kiss Columbia, but then he turns kind of rapidly 2 times, says, "Get back in front, put some hair oil on." Buddy Holly was singing his very last song. He gives his saxophone to Brad, and then he's walking towards Janet. He says, "With your arms around your girl, you try to sing along. It felt pretty good." He gooses her or something. It's not on screen, but he does something that startles her and goes, "Woo! You really had a good time." And then it's more "Hot Patootie, bless my soul. I really love that rock and roll," while he's dancing with Columbia, doing some lifts, very fun dance scene, and then he's starting to lower himself down onto the floor at the end of the minute on top of Columbia. Also, while all this is going on, we're getting intercut scenes of the Transylvanians absolutely getting it up on the walk. They're dancing so hard and having so much fun. There are so many great Transylvanian moments in this minute in particular. It's one of my favorites for them.
If I had to give just a very short visual explanation of what Turned looked like, I would say it's this.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is insane. I really, in particularly, noticed that Kimmy Wong is completely raging. They all seem to know this song, which I think is interesting. They're like singing along and stuff, so in the universe of the movie.
And one of the Transylvanians even goes, "Lovely party."
Yeah, that's Peggy Ledger, my favorite. And you don't really see it in this minute, but they're also like, they have a choreographed dance to this later. That's in the next minute, though, I think, the like stomping and kicking thing. So I don't know. In the universe of this movie, I guess the Transylvanians love this song and know it.
Well,
choreography for it, I don't know.
That comment reminds me of an old Saturday Night Live skit with Norm Macdonald, where he was a leader of the Jets, basically, and it was West Side Story, and Robert Downey Jr. was the guest, and he would come out and he started singing and dancing about how they're going to rumble tonight. And he's like, "What the hell was that?" And he goes, "Well, I don't know. I just kind of thought of it." And then Will Ferrell comes in. And of course, now they're all dancing together. And he's like, "Well, you just kind of pick it up." And I think that's what the Transylvanians are doing. They just kind of picked it up, and they got into it real easy.
I mean, I like that. I wish that I knew more people who could just pick up choreography like that, but that's not everyone. I say as I look directly into Kelly, digging into her soul.
Yeah, choreo is not my strong suit. What is, Leandra?
Your boobs. They're
That's true.
K-cups.
That's true, they are. So, I guess, what do we think of this minute, guys?
Well, I dubbed this the gratuitous sex scene.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
Classic.
I actually, earlier today, watched Lost Boys, which has my other favorite gratuitous sax scene. If you haven't seen that, there's Greasy Sax Rockstar, and it's a thing. And you have to like it.
If I could just add,
You are not
literally
the
my very
gratuitous.
next note says, just like the Lost Boys.
Right?
So
I
we're
haven't
on the same
seen it.
wavelength there with this whole saxophone scene.
So, and the reason that I was watching it was I had this weird suspicion that in Rocky Horror Picture Show, Meatloaf, who doesn't in real life play the sax, he is pantomiming the playing of the saxophone through the solo. You can even tell because there's not a reed in the sax. So this is all just, cinema magic. But anytime he's playing low notes, he brings his body down and physically brings the saxophone low. And anytime there are high notes, he brings that the saxophone up high. So when I'm teaching people how to play Eddie, I'm like, low notes are low, high notes are high. Just like without fail. If you do that, you'll be fine. And I wanted to know if Greased Up Sax Guy did the same thing, and he kind of does, but it's less, it's more nuanced, I'd say. And I think that it's because Greasy Sax Guy from Lost Boys is actually a saxophone player. But the takeaway from that is low notes, when you're playing them in a rock and roll sort of way, have to be played physically low.
Well, is there any other way to do it, though,
I mean, I don't play the saxophone. Kelly, you play the skin flute. Is it like that?
It's exactly like that, right?
In some ways, yeah. You really want to avoid hitting too many high notes with that, though.
Yeah, but the way you play it's more like a skin kazoo.
In some ways, yes.
It's
Some men like me to play it more like a percussion instrument.
oh,
I really love this.
I was gonna say a
Believe me,
recorder.
You can make some high-pitched noises that way.
That's
Nobody
one-
likes a recorder.
That's one way to get the job done. Well,
Yeah,
on that
it's a
sexy
pipe
note,
horn.
is Meatloaf sexy? Because that guy in Lost Boys, that's a sexy man right there. He's shirtless and sweaty. Meatloaf is also sweaty, but in a different kind of way. So, do we think Meatloaf is a sexy guy? And if so, I feel like Meatloaf himself would not be cast to play Eddie if this was remade today. I think they'd get a hunkier guy. Am I wrong?
Maybe.
Or would they get like Jack Black?
Well, so let me answer the first question. Jack Black for sure, actually, who I think is very sexy. But okay, Leandra's making a face, which I assume is agreement.
No,
Yeah.
I just with
He's
every
not
waking
sexy?
moment become gayer.
Oh,
So
that's fair. Well, but okay, to answer your question, I do think Meatloaf is sexy, except for his wig in this movie. It's real bad. But if he had like normal hair, I always find myself very attracted to women when they play Eddie because they are dressed like dykes on bikes, which it has always been a thing for me. Can I help you, Leandra?
No, I was just remembering from our last episode when you were like, oh yeah, and seeing Leandra as Eddie for the first time, I had to like kind of catch myself.
Yeah.
Because
Oh yeah, for
I'm
sure.
a beautiful dyke.
You are, yeah. And I mean, with because she wears an Eddie wig, kind of a much better wig actually than the one Eddie's wearing. With that's like a short black butch haircut. I'm into it. But so yeah, I mean, I think he's sexy. I like husky guys, and he definitely qualifies for that. I like his whole deal, but I mean, today probably less so for me.
So my thought process on Meatloaf is I don't think that he's supposed to be kind of aesthetically attractive so much as raw sex appeal. Like we have Rocky, who is this ideal man in Frank's mind, and then we have Eddie, who is the drug dealer who he was boning and having fun with, and clearly they scratch different itches for Frank, and I think that it's a nice little part of the buffet.
So, do you think then the whole reason behind taking half of Eddie's brain is to put that kind of sex appeal into a perfect body, so he can kind of get the best of both worlds into one person?
Oh, I hate that.
That's
yeah.
an interesting thought, though. Yeah, probably. I always wondered. I mean, I just assumed that like Frank needed a brain, but I guess he had other brains available to him. He could have taken half of Columbia's brain.
Could have taken Christopher Biggins.
I mean, he could have taken
so that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I was. He could have taken anybody that just randomly had a flat tire and showed up at the castle, and used their brain.
That's true.
Yeah, but he went with Eddie, who is clearly... I mean, Columbia may have a bar that has a questionable level, but Eddie definitely jumps over that bar, whatever the level is. He does do hot, sexy, fun time stuff with Columbia.
Yes.
If you believe the song, which I do.
Yeah.
I do too. There's no reason not to believe it.
Which song?
Hot Patootie.
Oh, okay.
The song
this
that
song.
The song that we're doing.
He might not be singing. I'm with you now. I wasn't sure he was singing about Columbia in that song.
I mean, and that's fair.
Yeah.
This kind of goes back into my tinfoil hat conspiracy about the Sword of Damocles and the fact that Eddie's final thought in life was possibly that the Sword of Damocles was hanging over his head, and now his real final thought in life before getting murdered for a second time, I guess, is about the great times that he had with sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah.
Well, my interpretation was that he was particularly, specifically, I should say, singing about Columbia, but I guess it could just be in general. He's just singing about, like you said, sex, drugs, rock and roll, and just some chick, and any chick USA that he could be singing about.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that the chick who'd go was like literally any chick who would go with him, whereas like I mean, I guess Columbia met Eddie at Frank's castle, right?
Yeah, that's
they weren't like
the concept.
Yeah, they weren't like together before then, I would think. So yeah. So I don't know if they were doing much thumping around, but maybe. I mean, I guess it's left ambiguous.
Yeah, but like he does. Sorry, go ahead. It's your show.
I used to thump around a chick who'd go.
I used to go for a ride with a chick who'd go. I know it says thump around.
It
Thump
also
around.
sounds like thump around.
Thump up, and kick down. But no, I used to go for a ride with a chick who'd go. I've listened to it extensively, and I feel very strong feelings about it. But we can disagree about that on and off air.
Okay.
I think we talked about that last minute because
we did.
I copied the notes and it from the lyrics and it said thump, and that's what I always hear myself. So
Yeah.
you're wrong.
Maybe
I'm
this
right.
is like that one
The dress.
like audio clip that some people
Oh,
hear
yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
But also the dress.
Yeah.
Well, also the dress, yeah.
Bryon, I know that you are a Meatloaf fan. Do you know his real name?
I have heard it at one point. I'm gonna say no because offhand I cannot think of it. You're gonna say it, and I'm gonna be like, "That's right." I'm just gonna throw it out there. It's gonna be something like Dwayne or something like that. But no, I don't remember
God,
offhand.
You're so close.
Okay, what is it?
It's Marvin Lee a day.
It's exactly Dwayne, just like I said.
Yeah.
Which, Dwayne the Loaf.
I think his first name is Meat and then last name Loaf. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to mention that in the opening, you guys were, describing like a goose, like Eddie goosed Janet, but it's kind of off screen. Now I see. I never looked at it that way, that he physically touched her. I just kind of, I always saw it as he started singing to her the same way he was singing to Columbia, and she was drawn into his animal magnetism, and she was really taken in with the song. And then he did a Ric Flair woo, and she was like, and then, of course, Brad's unimpressed and gets in front of her and all that good stuff. But I always just took it as him just sucking her in, and then he's like, woo, and and then she's just like, oh, you got me, oh, darn you, and then she's out. The moment's gone, she's out of it. She's no longer into it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I necessarily... I can't remember what I used to think was happening in that moment, if I always interpreted it as a goose, or if that's just what I picked up from watching Shadowcasts and then being on a Shadowcast. There is no way to know exactly what he did.
And for the listeners at home who are not aware of what goosing is, it is generally described as when you grab somebody kind of briefly by the buttocks, and you're kind of doing a pinching motion, like you're a goose attacking their butt. So hence goosing.
Yeah, it's better if you use the word fanny. You're pinching their fanny. True. Yeah.
Well, that doesn't play as well in the UK, I can tell you that. But yeah. So, right. Different people do it differently on Shadowcasts too. For me, it kind of depends on who is the Janet, if I'm doing that role. But if they're fine with it, I usually really get a good handful.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I got a question for you as Shadowcasters, because this brings up, something. Do you guys discuss, hey, I'm going to grab your butt ahead of time? So everybody's kind of cool with what's about to happen, or is it just kind of known what's coming?
You
and it's
should, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I cannot honestly say that every Shadowcaster does that, but I wish they would. Personally, and I'm somebody who's like, yeah, do whatever you want to me, whatever, get up in there, but not everybody feels that way. Not everybody's comfortable. For example, usually when I play Janet with a new Rocky or Rocky with a new Janet, there's a lengthy discussion about Touch Me because of the boob grabbing and mashing that happens in that scene, among other things. But yeah, I've been surprised. Sometimes some people have their own little quirks too in Shadowcast moments. That I've been surprised by, like smacking my ass at certain moments or whatever else. What about you, Leandra?
I will say that when I am Eddie, I don't make contact with the butt of Janet. That's more of a personal choice for me. If I did want to do that, I would definitely check ahead of time, because I don't want people surprisingly touching me, so I'm very, very alert to opportunities where I might have to surprise touch somebody else, which is why, for instance, if I'm going to completely smash my hand over Kelly's face for no particular reason,
she does that quite a bit, and she gets her hand licked.
No,
when will she learn?
I will never learn. I literally just will go over and smash my hand into her glasses. I'm a very normal person.
Yeah, I'm a normal person who gets licked by me. So anyway, to answer your question, I certainly do, and I mean, I've only ever actually played Eddie as part of Hat Nights. I have auditioned for Eddie and been cleared to do it for our cast, but I have never actually been cast as Eddie. So I've only ever played him during Hat Nights, but I actually played him last weekend in a Hat Night, and I guess we should probably explain what that is.
Yeah, that was my next question. Yeah, what is a Hat Night?
Well, Leandra.
A hat night is when every time the criminologist is on the screen, essentially, everybody else pulls character names out of a hat, and that's the character that they play for that entire scene, and then they just switch it the next time. So it's absolute chaos.
It's really fun. I love them. So yeah, I drew Eddie for Eddie's scene at our hat night this past weekend, and I was fortunate enough to have Oscar in my Janet, so I knew I could do pretty much whatever I wanted to him and he'd be fine. But it just depends.
So let's go ahead and get over into callbacks.
I had one more thing.
Okay, let's not get into callbacks yet. What's
Just
your
one more thing. No straight man has this kind of memory for belts and lipstick shades. This was when Eddie betrayed his sexuality. No straight man describes a lipstick as baby pink, nor
Not in a sexual way, one would hope.
nor noticed a white plastic belt or thought about it.
Well, I can appreciate the white plastic belt being a thing that he distinctly remembers, because if he's fumbling with it, it's like, stupid fucking white plastic belt.
I guess that's fair. I don't know. That's just my take. I mean, I think he is canonically bisexual because he had sex with Frank, right?
That's
That-
at least conceptually what's up.
That's my interpretation. Although I have to admit, like when I went to see this in high school, you know, and went to Rocky on the midnight showings, I really wasn't aware of a lot what was going on because I was kind of dense, and I'm like I didn't make the connection back then that Eddie and Frank had a thing, and I don't know what I thought. I mean, I just thought he was just a guy that hung. I didn't even know he was a drug dealer either. I just thought he was a guy that hung around with them, and then they used his brain. So I think it's pretty apparent.
And that was exactly like how I interpreted that for quite some time. It never occurred to me to think about where Eddie came from, how he fits into this. Like, he's just this random person that shows up and immediately dies. And spoiler alert, guys. And it wasn't until I actually started thinking about what if this movie had a plot, and then realizing, that was it. It does, if you think about it, but it's not right there. And honestly, the plot doesn't need to be there for me to enjoy this.
No, it's a fun movie, and it's got some catchy songs. But it is sometimes nice to be like, how does this all connect from one scene to the next? and I mean, there's a through line there, but sometimes you have to read between the lines, or have to listen to Rocky Horror Minute to understand what the heck's going on.
And listening to Rocky Horror Minute will at least get you some information. Sometimes it's real, other times it's just me lying.
Or just making shit up for fun, which we also do, yeah.
Yeah. I sure hope that people aren't taking notes. I know I'm not.
Oh no! And when you guys wrap the show, there'll be a quiz, right? So they better be taking notes.
Oh yes, yeah. So now I am comfortable going to callbacks. I really just wanted to call Eddie gay.
I see.
You know who else is gay?
Who?
Oscar.
Yeah.
Also you. Also me.
Bryon, you seem kind of like an odd man out here.
That's all right. I like being the unique one of the group. Then I guess. All right.
A token straight man.
So callbacks, I have just a few. Maybe Leandra has more, but because it's a song and there isn't like a ton of dialogue in this, maybe not. The first one that I have is when he's going into his sax solo. Right before the sax starts, you can yell, "Live from New York, it's Saturday night!" Because it feels very much like the opening of Saturday Night Live. Always funny, always gets a laugh in my experience. When he does the kick, fist bump on the beat, eat shit and die is a really classic one. You always hear that one. when he says, my hands kind of fumbled with the white plastic belt, you can sing over that chastity belt. That's very popular. And then when he's kind of leaning in towards Columbia, you can do like an aw psych. That's what I got.
Brian, do you have any?
I don't. Was I supposed to?
No. No, honestly, no.
She's vamping.
Vamp, 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 vamp.
I was gonna say I can
Yeah,
make one up. I'll try to, do
Yeah,
like a
make
weird.
one up.
Yeah, I was like, do like a Weird Al type of lyric for the for the song. Well, I will say this. When he does the fist pump, kick, I find myself, no matter where I am, like in a car or whatever, when that happens, I feel like I always got to do that little kick at that point of the song, because it just seems, because I've seen that, like, I associate the movie with the song and not just, even though the song is one of these Rocky Horror songs that could easily be on the radio and I have nothing to do with the movie. It's just, I feel like I have to, like, just kind of kick, like, yeah, you kind of get into that one little bit. Or maybe that's just me and I'm weird. So
No.
It can be both.
That's true.
a little from column A, a little from column B.
All right, so there are a couple of things that people do, particularly at this second verse, that I find maybe frustrating is a good way of putting it. Because there's this kind of idea that Meatloaf is singing so quickly that there's no possible way that anybody else could possibly sing along. Some people just do a callback of mumbling along, which isn't funny, in my opinion. If you want to give me money and like a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, then like I can change my mind. But I don't find the gibberish to be like all that fun. So then there's for Hot Patootie, Bless My Soul. You say like fuck my titties, smoke a bowl, sex, drugs, and rock and roll is a nice thing that people often say around that point. And
I thought you were just gonna say it's a nice thing, period.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it is true. For my head used to swim from the perfume I smelled. Right after that, you say my career kind of faltered after Bat Out of Hell.
Take that, Meatloaf.
Which when I heard that the first time, I was like, hey now, no, I liked his other stuff. And then I realized that I'm the nerd.
Yeah.
And then there's Buddy Holly was, instead of singing his very last song, it's screaming all the way down.
Oh, right.
Stuff like that. Otherwise, there really isn't a lot. There's a lot of kind of reaction to what the Transylvanians are doing, particularly during the sax solo. The fact that Peggy Ledger says "lovely party," you can do some sort of joke of like describe the Democrats or the Republicans or the Libertarians or whatever, and you go, "Oh, lovely party," and then depending on where you are, somebody will disagree. It's a thing. People love it.
That sounds like something that could be particularly volatile where you guys are.
In
like,
DC?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That reminds me. Well, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay, thank you. Well, that reminds me. I went and saw Lewis Black here locally one time, and I'm in the Research Triangle Park, let's just say, in North Carolina. And there's 3 major colleges around: UNC, NC State, and Duke. And Lewis Black was a graduate of UNC, Chapel Hill, but he said, he goes, whenever I come here, I will not say which of these colleges I graduated from, because the other 2 go, fuck you then, because it's so so I could see that being the same kind of response of, depending on which party you choose to say is a lovely party in your area.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons that I like the kind of generic callbacks of like like the local sports team or describe a local thin person, things like that, because they get you kind of still squeeze the amusement out of that joke without the potential, no, fuck them, they're our rivals, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I when I was a kid, I used to have a joke that I would literally, I would change the punchline of depending on what crowd I was playing to, because it's a joke about basically like, 3 presidents on an airplane, and then like one of them's like, oh, make somebody have the punchline is somebody at the end says, I'll make all of America happy, and throws out a president. And I would switch it between George Bush or Bill Clinton getting thrown out of the airplane and being the thrower, depending on who I was talking to, because I was just a shameless little, like, pandering little whore as a kid, apparently.
You wanted people to like you.
I remember I told it to my dad, and I said George Bush pushed out Bill Clinton when I told it to my dad, because he's a diehard Republican, and he said, Kelly, I'm really surprised that you told a joke with that particular ending. I wouldn't have thought that you would think that was funny. And then I admitted it to him, and he was like, wow, you soulless little. Anyway, I just remembered that. Great callback, though.
Yeah.
Are there any others?
I can't think of any, and I just looked, and I choose not to read any of the ones that I've seen from other casts that I haven't mentioned, because it's my podcast. I don't have to say ones that I think are lame.
That is fair. Then I guess there isn't a whole lot else to say.
So I guess that means.
But I have one other thing I wanted to say.
What? No.
No, it's not whatever you seem to think it is. I was going to say I wanted to give a shout out to Mark in Greensboro, North Carolina. He has been a really loyal listener. He sent us a bunch of very kind messages, deep cuts, and I just was so flattered. So I just wanted to say thanks, Mark, for being a great listener. If you're in Greensboro or near it, he is performing with the Hot Patooties.
Oh, that's awesome.
Go see them, and it ties right in because of the song. So go see the Hot Patooties this coming month.
Or else,
yes.
Or else be in DC.
Bryon, you're in North Carolina. You have to go see the Hot Patooties.
I know. I mean, with the name alone, and also it's not terribly far from where I am. Far enough, but not terribly far.
Well, there you go.
I think that we have chatted your ear off for quite some time now, so let's go ahead and wrap this one up the same way we wrap up all of our shows, with us talking at the same time.
Yes.
Now, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, so get the fuck out.
Nice. Yes.
Darkness has conquered. Brad and Janet, the servants gone to a distant planet. Whoa. At the late night double feature picture show, I wanna go